Summer Garden Talk today. Today we have Catherine Johnston with us. She is our Master Food Preserver Volunteer, and Catherine will be doing gifts from the kitchen. So take it away, Catherine.
Hello and welcome back. If you came here last year via Zoom, I have 3 more recipes to add to your collection of gift giving. And so happy holidays to everybody. Something different besides watching Hallmark movie channel. So anyways, my first recipe is going to be fruited vinegar. I'm also going to do a compound butter. And finally, I'm also going to be doing a flavored nuts. And so we'll start with the vinegar, super simple. And I will show you both raspberry and blueberry vinegars. And all you need to do is start with, and I like using a mason jar, start with a half a cup of fruit. And so I have a half a cup of raspberries that have been thawed out. These are actually from my garden. I saved them on purpose. And what I need to do is bruise the raspberries. So I'll just take a fork and just go in there and kind of smash them up. So pretending I was making like a raspberry shortcake or something like that. Yum. Oh, that you can smell the freshness stuff, even though they're frozen. So that's all I have to do. In the meantime, I'd already heated up some vinegar. We'll talk about vinegars in a minute. And you heat it to 190 degrees. The camera is on. Look up. Okay. You heat it to 190 degrees and you pour it right over fruit. Raspberries. And it already starts turning red. These need to sit for 3 to 4 weeks, and the flavor will then generate into the vinegar. Okay, so we have that already. So previously I did this a month ago. I started everything, and I made 3 different versions of blueberry vinegar. And the difference is, the only difference is the vinegar. So I have rice wine vinegar, which is, and I have everything labeled, and I highly recommend that you do this. I put the date on it, I put the type of vinegar that I'm making, and I put the percent of acidity. So rice wine vinegar is the lowest, it's 4.3, and we'll explain that in a minute. The next one is wine vinegar, and that is 6%, which is actually quite good. And then the apple cider vinegar, probably the most common, is 5%. So the acidity has to do with how long it will keep and how safe it is. So the rice wine vinegar, you definitely is the lowest of the acid, and you definitely want to put this in your refrigerator when you're storing it after you get it flavored. All of these will be going in the refrigerator today because they have the amount of time that I need to do this. So anyway, depending on what you like is depending on what you should pick out. This one does add a little bit of color. And I have noticed at the store, some apple cider vinegars are darker than others. So I picked the lightest one, and so that it didn't change it up too much. So I'm actually quite pleased with how they all came out. So those are your vinegars that I showed. There are more out there, not recommended balsamic. Okay. So then the next thing you need is a sterilized bottle to put it in. So after your amount of time, you're going to put it in something that you actually boil the jar, and you need a coffee filter. Now, what I did ahead of time was I pre-wet the coffee filter so that it fits in here better. And so I'm just going to take that. Which one shall I do? I guess we'll do the rice wine. So, and all I'm going to be doing is pouring it in. Now, if you pour it through and it still comes out like cloudy or whatever, you can do this a couple of times to get out. It might have just a little extra stuff in it that still goes through your filter. So you might do it a couple of times. So the proportion or the ratio for doing this is 1 to 2. So it is twice the amount of vinegar to the amount of fruit. Now, if you watched last year's show, I don't know what month it was, I did vinegars that were from different herbs and things like that. So I'm trying to get this through enough so I can put that fruit in there.
So Catherine, to sterilize the bottle, is there something you recommend?
To sterilize it, a big pan on your stove top, boiling water, 5 minutes. Stir it around a little bit. And you can notice already the pretty color. I hope you guys can see the pretty color of the blueberries. So I'll let this sit and we'll get back to it at the end. I'll show you the final version. By the end, it should probably be all the way full. So there's our first gift. Super simple, super easy. And if you don't have a blueberry or raspberry tree, you can go to your local grocery store and just buy a small bag of fruit. This is probably the second most expensive. I have the most expensive is the next one. The cheapest one is coming up for the gifts. So this one's not too bad for our price. I'll just set this aside. The next one is compound butter. Now, compound butter is flavored butter. What do you do with it? Most times I've ever seen compound butter, it was at a restaurant, a fancy steak restaurant. And they take compound butter and they put it over your steak and it melts over the top of it. It's so good. But what if I told you you could use that compound butter for other things? Let me tell you, the more things you do, the more things that you have, you can't stop. So I served this the other day in a meeting, and it is, we had monkey bread, very similar. This is the savory version of monkey bread. So it's pull-apart bread, and I'm just gonna pull it apart, and you can see around each roll is different herbs and things like that. So I'm going to teach you how to make the butter. That's just an idea of what you can do with it. So all you need is 1 stick or half a cup of unsalted butter. Now, some people might use salted butter, but you have no control over the amount of salt that, she has a question. So we're going to control the amount of salt that's in your recipe. So, Paul, this is for you. How do you do this? So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to make it into a 1/4 inch cuts. It's a little too, it's warm in here, so this is really softened up. So all I'm doing is cutting it into little cuts. Now, if you have a pastry blender, you don't have to do this, but to be honest, I think it goes a lot faster when you cut the butter into little bits. So, there's my butter cut. Meanwhile, in a bowl, I'm going to add the following ingredients. This is homemade garlic or butter. It's my version of a recipe. I read a lot of different recipes. I tried a lot of different butters, but this was my favorite in the end. So all I'm going to do is a half a teaspoon of dried garlic. Now you can buy it at any store, or you can buy Tastefully Simple's version or whatever. Then we're going to add a half a teaspoon of dehydrated onion, same thing. And then we have a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. I like the big pieces of black pepper. Okay. And then a teaspoon of basil. And parsley. It's 2 teaspoons of dried parsley. And then finally, this one makes it different than all the rest, 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. Now, if you're a gardener like I am, I do dehydrate my own herbs during the summer, and they're fresher. So we were talking before about the freshness of herbs. If you're going to do this, get the fresh stuff. I don't want to see a little metal tin boxes being used, you know, grandma's old ones. Well, anyways, so you're going to mix this all up ahead of time. So mix this, and it'll just make it go in a lot smoother. Yeah. So besides making that bread, I had some leftover butter the other day, and I had a baked potato, and I put a slab of this butter on it. Oh, it was so good. And I actually had some green beans, and I put some of that on. This is a great recipe if you have kids. You know, you cut up the butter, give them the pastry blender, or what I use is my mom's fork. And it has the small tines in it, and all I do is I put everything in the bowl and I just watch my favorite Hallmark movie and put this together. Okay, it's really a favorite because they're all the same. Sorry.
All right, just a reminder, we will be sending out recipes after the event today. So you don't have to be like scrambling to write everything down. And if you do have a question, please put it in the chat. We will answer questions when Catherine's done with her demonstration.
So this goes together super easily. And like I said, it's room temperature butter is the key. So you can pull it out the night before if you're having the grandkids in or, you know, whatever, just put it on the counter. So now how do I present it as a gift? I have a couple ideas. The first one is my favorite. It's these little, they're Betty Crocker little containers, they're half a cup. It fits perfectly. Oh my goodness, this is so awesome. So pack it in. Oh, did I mention popcorn in this butter? You saw Jan's face right now. She was like, yeah, okay. It's really quite good. So you have, so far you have steak, you have vegetables, yeah, popcorn. That's something else. I know there was more. Fish. So there's other recipes. I did a lot of research. I did Maine Cooperative Extension. They have a lot of recipes. They were good. Taste of Home has a ton of recipes. They came up with one of the other, I gave you 2 recipes. The other recipe that I included is another one I created because I didn't like the original one. It's a California style butter. The California style butter has olives, okay? But when I show you the end of the olives, you understand why I like it. It looks like Christmas. So look at that. It goes together pretty simply. And you can tuck this in with, like, say, a package of popcorn or whatever it is your friend or relatives like to eat. This would be really, or you could do a series of, say, 3 or 4 different flavored butters and put it in a little basket. And I just think that's one way to give it. The other way, this is the same recipe I've already made up. This recipe, you can tell after it sets for about a week, it's really pungent. So the garlic in here is really pungent. Anyways, I made it into a log. So if you were my friend and you were going to give me a steak for Christmas, I'm just kidding. Anyways, anyway, you would just slice these. You could slice these, you know, into like little things and put them on top of the steak. And anyways, this freezes for 3 months. It stays very well. I would probably wrap it in aluminum foil or double baggy it and label the date and everything on the outside. They all need to go in the refrigerator. They'll keep for, I think it's a month in the refrigerator and 3 months in the freezer. So you date it. So just take this and set it aside. So here's my real idea. So you've seen charcuterie boards, and charcuterie boards have meat and cheese and olives and things like that. Well, why not give, instead, I like making bread, make some bread. This is supposed to be a Christmas tree shape. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. It kind of drives you with bread dough, crazy. Anyways, you could give a loaf of bread and some spreads, or you could just give one of those little spreads and have these cute little butter knives that are holiday festive. And this one's Jan, she wanted to today. So what I have here is the California butter. You can see that the olive on top, little olives inside. There's pimentos in it, and there's parsley in it. It's so flavorful. I'm not an olive fan, but I like this. This one is pumpkin butter. And I was asked earlier, do you melt the butter? No, so you can actually see, I'll put it up closer. You can see, don't melt the butter. It doesn't go back together well. And I can turn it again, turn this way, you can see it better. You see that it divided up. So this was my pumpkin butter. I spent a terrible time mixing it in, so I melted it too much. Soft butter, yes, but not melted. So do not melt it. Is my big thing. The other thing that you can do is, say you're into candy decorating and candy molds, you can actually press these into little candy molds, and then you can pop them out when they're hard. And you can have them like on your little bread and butter plate and have these cute little like roses or something like that. That was another idea that I really liked. So, but the key on any of this is make sure that you put it in the refrigerator and make sure you seal it so it doesn't take on the flavors of your refrigerator. So anyways, that's my second idea. My third idea. That's the most expensive one. Has to do with nuts. So thank heavens I bought my nuts about 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, and I had a coupon, so I got a really good price. It doesn't take a whole lot of ingredients, it's just one expensive one, nuts. So this one is called chocolate covered almond recipe. And I am also giving you two. The second recipe is candied mixed nuts. And that one is from Splenda and is highly recommended by the American Diabetic Association. So if you're diabetic, you can make the second one, or you can make the first one and just switch out the sugar to Splenda. It works. Trust me, I made it and it tastes good. So anyways, this one, all I have to do is I have to remind, I had them all with, but I have to, sorry. I know I get the background. So the first thing to do is just whip up your eggs. And then you're going to add 1 pound of nuts to the egg whites. So that we don't have much. So we're going to toss these into the egg whites. Now, I did use 2 egg whites in this recipe, even though the recipe, and I wrote that down, even though the recipe only called for 1, I found it wasn't just enough egg whites. So I like to do a little more eggs. So that's step 1 and 2. So simple already. Again, something you can do with your kids, like mixing. Okay, then in the meantime, you have 2 more ingredients, or 3 ingredients. We need 1 teaspoon. I did open it earlier. 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I forgot to add it. In. So. Just add it. Okay, so strong vanilla. Like vanilla.
All I can smell is vinegar.
Really? Oh. Okay, so my other 2 ingredients are my sugar, and that is 3/4 of a cup of sugar and 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Now, this one I'm using this time today, I'm using Special Dark. I decided I wanted to try it a little bit different, so my end result should be the same, but just maybe a little more tang to the cocoa. No. Anyways, just need to stir these 2 up. And you want to always pre-mix all these. It's just like in the other with the butter. Pre-mix all the dry ingredients so it doesn't all go in one. Just stirring these all together. Oh, by the way, I preheated the oven ahead of time to 250 degrees. So really low oven. This recipe calls for an hour. And you need to stay home for an hour because you have to turn it every 15 minutes. So And it does require you to actually turn it. You don't want the nuts to burn. Not the price of that you're spending. Okay, so that's good. And take the cookie sheet and I have today. If it ever curls on you, curl it the other way and it'll go flat. Spread these out.
Catherine, I know you're using almonds, but could you substitute other nuts?
Yes, and the one recipe calls for mixed nuts. They actually tell you what the amount. And if you wanted to do it all in almonds or if you wanted to do it all in, one of the recipes I did look at had bought can of mixed nuts, which means there was salt on it. And it also had peanuts, which is why I didn't do it because I'm allergic. But so you could do whatever kind of nuts you like or are not allergic to. So just spread this out. So if you find a good deal on a walnut, good luck. Anyways, this is going to go in the oven for an hour and turning it every 15 minutes. So I'll set this aside. The magic of how everything is going, it's already done. So they come out like a meringue and they're little crunchy bites. So anybody who has friends who are gluten intolerant, this is a great gift because this is no gluten in this. You can make it with sugar, without sugar, so diabetics. I just found it to be a great gift. Now, how do you give it? How do you make it look good? Well, you go buy a little tin. And what I did with every one of them, I put it in a plastic bag so it wasn't just in a tin. So that was one of my nuts. I also found, sister's not watching, this great Italian ceramic jar, and I thought, what a wonderful gift that is. There's a second idea. And then you might be like me. You get all these holiday mugs and you don't know what to do with them. Great gift. So you're gonna just take it and fill it up again. I'm using the little plastic baggie. Just fill it up. And then I have these cute little bells. So everyone knows I'm coming. Just to make it a little bit different. Paul, do I see you sneaking over there getting those mugs now? Anyways, so there's a third way of doing it. So I'm actually done.
You're done.
I did it under time today.
Yay. Well, those nuts look awesome, Catherine.
I have a couple of them.
Yeah, so we did have a few questions. Let's do the questions that people sent in first, and then we can open it up. So Dar asked, can the vinegars be flavored with spices too, such as a spiced blueberry vinegar?
Like a cinnamon, I was actually gonna put mint in, they do suggest it. Now, if you're going to use an herb like mint, you need to wash and dry it, like I did before. So take the little lettuce spinner and after you wash it, spin it dry and then paper towel dry it. Then you're going to want to crunch it up, stick it in. Now,
Still draining.
say you wanted to add the mint now. Say it was so be pretty. You could add fresh mint that you've washed and dried into my jar to make it look pretty. You could also add some new blueberries to it. Don't use the stuff that's been sitting around for a while, but because they'll leave a little residue in there. So you can use some fresh ones in there. So yeah, I would also use like a cinnamon stick. Would be really.
Oh, a cinnamon stick, but maybe not straight spices unless you know you can filter them out, or would they be too strong and overwhelming?
It'd be a test. The only ones I saw were mint and what's the other herb?
Maybe like a lemongrass or something?
That was it. And I was thinking about like, I wonder if it's still alive out in my garden. I know it's in my basement. I have parsley and I have mint in my basement that I could use.
All right, so maybe some experimentation before you gift it.
So and that's why you saw one of my jars was shorter than the other, is because I was like trying out that vinegar wasn't sure. And again, depending on which vinegar you pick, like this one was from Italy. This was the most expensive. This was an $8 bottle jar of vinegar. So again, picking it, though it was a good acid level, so that's what that.
All right, so question on the butter.
Okay.
Can the hard butter be grated instead of cutting up? She saw that as a fast way to cut up butter on a cooking channel.
America's Test Kitchen or Country Cooking, either, or I did see it too. I just hate cleaning up my grater. You can also do, yes, you can do it that way. You can also use your mixer, and I did use my mixer when I was making a lot of the same flavor. But overall, I didn't pick, why do I need to get out my, like, you can do a food processor, whatever, that you like, but to get that all out for 1/2 cup, the fork is.
But if you're making more,
If you're making a huge amount, but if you're if you're making it for the first time to taste it, I would try it out for just a 1/2 cup, just to see, if you like the flavor. Because I seriously, there were some, I did not like the flavors that they blended together, and
and we did talk about freezing the butter. Oh, does it thaw nicely?
yes, the log butter that I had here was frozen and thawed, so that one does. Just don't melt it. But that's
Don't melt it. Yeah, okay. So I think that was all the questions that came in by chat. We have a small group, so if anyone has another question for Catherine, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it. And while we're waiting, oh, thank you.
those are the chocolate ones.
I get to try the,
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna talk first before I get my mouth full of nuts. So this is our last garden talk for the year. It looks like we'll be starting up again in February. February will probably still be Zoom. We're hoping that come March, we'll be able to do maybe a hybrid version of Zoom and in person. We'll see how things go. So any questions for Catherine? These all look delicious, and I'm sitting here smelling, well, I got vinegar because she heated the vinegar earlier. And that I did try the monkey bread at our meeting and it was delicious. So anything with bread and butter, that sounds like a good gift to me. So, yeah.
I lucked out with the charcuterie board. I found it at a church sale. It was brand new.
And I think that's great if you're doing a little dinner party or having family or, Christmas morning, you've got.
Game night, Lori. There's a Lori here, that's it.
Yes, the recipes, I'll be emailing them out later today, Christine. So I do have those for you guys. Catherine also did a garden talk last year on the herb vinegars and oils. So I'm going to look up the safety sheet that we passed out with that, just so you guys have that too. Because I think that's important to know for the vinegars, is the safety concerns.
I don't even remember what.
I think we did it in the fall. Yeah, I think it was a fall one.
I did sauerkraut.
And yes, sauerkraut with that. I think it was an October one. All right, so
I am back next year.
it
so
doesn't,
I've
yeah.
already signed me up.
We've already signed Catherine up for December 2022 gifts from the kitchen. And
Hopefully we're live.
yeah, hopefully. And apples in October, I think.
Yes, I'm doing a harvest of apples, so.
So we're working on next year's schedule. And if you guys are on our email list or look on our website as we get things ready to go, we'll be posting it on our Cornell Cooperative Extension Genesee website. So thanks, everybody. Happy holidays. Thanks for participating this year. We hope to see some of you actually in person next year.
Yay.
And I'm going to stop the recording.